The smell of premium steaks and expensive whiskey filled the manicured backyard of my father's Hillcrest mansion, where 60 of the city's most successful business owners had gathered to celebrate William Parker's 60th birthday. The party was everything Dad loved: exclusive, impressive, and designed to showcase exactly how far he'd climbed from his middle-class roots. "You don't belong here with successful people, Amanda." Dad's voice carried across the marble patio as I stood near the outdoor kitchen, watching him flip Wagyu beef on his $15,000 custom grill. He was in his element tonight: expensive polo shirt, gold Rolex catching the light, surrounded by real estate moguls and investment bankers who hung on his every word about market strategies and wealth building. "Look around," he continued, gesturing with his grilling spatula toward the crowd of guests. "These people built empires. They understand what it takes to create real wealth. You're 32 years old and still playing around with that little property maintenance business." The guests nearby shifted uncomfortably, but I could see some nodding in agreement. They'd all heard Dad's stories about his disappointing daughter who fixed up old houses, instead of pursuing a serious career in finance like he'd wanted. I set down my untouched glass of the $200 bottle of wine Dad had been bragging about all evening and started walking toward the garden gate. At 32, I'd learned there was no point in arguing with him at his own party, especially in front of his business associates. "That's right, just leave," my stepmother Linda called out from her position near the pool, where she was entertaining the wives of Dad's wealthiest clients. "Maybe someday you'll understand what real success looks like." I pulled my car keys from the pocket of my simple sundress, the same modest outfit that had earned disapproving looks from Linda when I'd arrived. Not because I couldn't afford designer clothes, but because I'd learned that expensive fashion drew assumptions about my lifestyle that I wasn't ready to discuss with my family. The evening air was warm as I walked across Dad's perfectly manicured lawn, past the fountain he'd installed last year and the guest house that cost more than most people's primary residences. Behind me, the party continued with its symphony of success: conversations about stock portfolios, vacation homes, and business acquisitions that defined worthiness in Dad's social circle. I was halfway to my modest Toyota Camry when my phone rang with the distinctive tone I'd assigned to my senior property manager. "I should take this," I murmured to myself, then answered the call. "Hello, Michael." "Amanda. I have incredible news. The Hillcrest acquisition is complete, all 47 properties including the commercial district. The entire neighborhood is officially yours now. $180 million transferred successfully." I stopped walking, my hand tightening on the phone as I processed what Michael had just said. The Hillcrest neighborhood. The entire area, including the street where Dad's mansion sat. "Any complications with the residential owners?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "None whatsoever. Most were thrilled to get cash offers 30% above market value. A few holdouts came around when we offered relocation assistance and first right of refusal if they ever want to move back." I glanced back at Dad's house where the party was in full swing. Through the large windows I could see him holding court near his bar, probably telling stories about his latest real estate deals to impressed colleagues. "What about the commercial properties?" "Every single one. The shopping center, the office complex, both restaurants, the medical building, even the country club at the end of the street. Parker Holdings now owns the entire Hillcrest district." Parker Holdings, the investment company I'd built over the past decade, named after my mother's maiden name to keep my business activities separate from Dad's social circle. "Outstanding work, Michael. Any issues we need to address immediately?" "Just one thing. The City Planning Commission wants to meet about your development proposal. They're very excited about the affordable housing integration and the sustainability features." I could hear the party getting louder behind me. Someone had obviously started the karaoke machine Dad had rented for the occasion. His voice carried across the yard as he began what sounded like his annual birthday toast. "Schedule that for next week," I told Michael. "And Michael, make sure all current residents get the welcome packets with the new ownership information. I want everyone to know their property values just increased significantly." "Already handled. The Hillcrest Homeowners Association is ecstatic. Your community investment fund will cover infrastructure improvements they've wanted for years." As I ended the call, I realized the party noise had died down considerably. I turned to see most of the guests had moved onto the back patio, where they could hear Dad's conversation near the grill more clearly. but several people were staring at me through the large picture windows, their expressions ranging from curious to confused. I'd apparently been speaking louder than I intended during my call with Michael. I walked back toward the house, my phone buzzing with text messages from my team about tomorrow's business meetings. As I reached the patio, Dad was just finishing his story about outbidding 3 other investors for a strip mall downtown. "Amanda," called out Robert Harrison, one of Dad's golf partners and the owner of Harrison Development Corporation. "I couldn't help but overhear your phone conversation. Did you say something about a $180 million acquisition?" The patio went quiet except for the gentle bubbling of Dad's expensive fountain and the soft jazz music playing from his outdoor sound system. "Yes," I replied simply. "My company just completed the purchase of the entire Hillcrest neighborhood." Dad's grilling tongs clattered to the marble countertop. "Your company?" "Parker Holdings," I explained, pulling out my phone and opening the property management app one checked every morning. "We specialize in large-scale residential and commercial acquisitions with focus on community development and affordable housing integration." The screen showed a detailed map of the Hillcrest district with all 47 properties highlighted in green, indicating completed ownership transfers. "This includes your house, Dad," I said quietly, showing him the screen. 1247 Maple Avenue. Purchased this afternoon for $4.2 million, about 40% above your mortgage balance. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the ice melting in people's drinks. Linda's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the travertine tile. The expensive Bordeaux spread across the stone like spilled paint. "You bought our house," Dad whispered. "I bought the entire neighborhood," I corrected gently. 47 residential properties, 12 commercial buildings, and the surrounding infrastructure. It's part of a sustainable community development project I've been planning for 3 years. Robert Harrison leaned forward in his patio chair, his investment banker instincts clearly intrigued. "Amanda, how large is your operation?" I scrolled through my portfolio summary. Parker Holdings manages approximately $2.1 billion in real estate assets across 8 states. We own residential communities, office complexes, retail centers, and mixed-use developments. About 3,500 properties total. The murmur that ran through the crowd was like electricity. I could practically see people recalculating their entire understanding of the Parker family dynamics. $2 billion? My half-brother Kevin asked from his position near the pool. At 25, he worked as a junior analyst at Dad's investment firm and had spent the evening networking with Dad's wealthy friends. "That's the conservative valuation," I explained. "The actual market value is probably closer to $3 billion, but we focus on long-term community impact rather than maximum short-term profits." Dad was staring at me like I was speaking in a foreign language. "But you drive that old Toyota. You live in that small apartment. You wear regular clothes." "I live modestly because I believe in investing profits back into the communities we serve," I replied. "Every dollar I don't spend on luxury items is a dollar that can go toward affordable housing, sustainable infrastructure, or community programs." My phone rang again. This time it was my chief development officer calling from our Portland office. "Excuse me," I said to the crowd of stunned faces. "This is about our Pacific Northwest expansion." I answered the call. "Hello, Sarah. Amanda, fantastic news. The Oregon State Housing Authority approved our application for the Sustainable Development Grants. They're providing $50 million in matching funds for the affordable housing components of our Portland project." "That's wonderful," I replied, aware that 60 of the city's most prominent business leaders were hanging on every word. "What's the timeline?" "Construction can start next month. We'll be building 1,200 units of mixed-income housing with solar panels, community gardens, and integrated retail spaces. The governor wants to use it as a model for statewide affordable housing policy." I glanced around at the faces staring at me in complete fascination. "Sarah, I'm at a family event right now. Could we review the construction timeline Monday morning?" "Of course." "Oh, and Amanda, the National Housing Council called about that keynote speech they want you to give at the Sustainable Development Conference. They're very excited to have you address the intersection of profitable real estate investment and community social responsibility. Have my assistant coordinate with them. I'll review the speech outline next week." "Perfect. Congratulations again on the Hillcrest acquisition. It's going to transform that whole district. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my purse. The patio remained absolutely silent except for the soft sound of the fountain and the distant hum of traffic from the main street. The National Housing Council? Linda asked weakly. They're interested in how large-scale property investment can support affordable housing instead of displacing it, I explained. It's a model we've successfully implemented in 12 communities so far. Dad slowly sat down in the nearest patio chair, looking like he needed the support. Amanda, I don't understand. If you own billions of dollars in real estate, why do you live like? Why don't you show it? Because wealth isn't about possessions, Dad. It's about impact. For 10 years I've been focused on building communities rather than building an image. I walked to the patio railing looking out at the neighborhood I now owned. Every house, every street light, every sidewalk was now under my stewardship. While you've been impressed by people who buy expensive things, I've been buying entire neighborhoods and transforming them into places where families can thrive regardless of their income level. The party guests were completely captivated now. This was better than any business conference they'd attended. The Hillcrest project will add 200 units of affordable housing integrated seamlessly with existing homes. Property values will increase for current residents, but will also ensure teachers, firefighters, and service workers can afford to live in the community they serve. Robert Harrison was taking notes on his phone. This is remarkable, Amanda. Have you considered expanding this model nationally? We're already operating in 8 states, I replied. Next year we're launching similar projects in Texas, Colorado, and North Carolina. The goal is to prove that profitable real estate investment and community social responsibility aren't mutually exclusive. Dad found his voice, though it sounded nothing like his earlier confident tone. But Amanda, when you said you were in property maintenance, you let me think you were just fixing up old houses. I'm fixing up old houses, Dad. I'm also fixing up old neighborhoods, old communities, and old assumptions about what success looks like. I turned back to face the crowd of 60 successful business owners, many of whom were now looking at me with expressions of respect and genuine interest. For 10 years, you've all heard Dad apologize for his daughter who never figured out how to be successful. You've listened to him explain that I work in property maintenance, like it was something embarrassing. The patio was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. But I wasn't embarrassed by my work. I was building something meaningful while all of you were measuring success by the price tags on your possessions. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. What now? Kevin asked, his voice barely audible. The city council just approved our application to develop the old industrial district downtown. We'll be converting 12 acres of abandoned buildings into a mixed-use community with affordable housing, local businesses, and green spaces. The mayor's wife, who was standing near the outdoor bar, stepped forward excitedly. That's the Morrison District project. I've been following that development in the city planning meetings. You're the mysterious developer who's been working with the community groups. Parker Holdings believes in community input, I confirmed. We spent 2 years meeting with neighborhood associations, local businesses, and resident groups before designing the development plan. She turned to the other guests. This project is going to revitalize the entire downtown area while preserving the community character. It's the most thoughtful urban development proposal the city has seen in decades. Dad stood up slowly, walking toward me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of amazement, pride, and something that looked like regret. Amanda, he said quietly, I owe you an enormous apology. We all do. You don't owe me anything, Dad. But I'd like us to start over. Maybe get to know each other as adults instead of as the roles we've been playing. Linda was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Amanda. I had no idea what you were building. We all thought. You thought success had to look a certain way, I said gently. Expensive clothes, luxury cars, impressive social events. But real success is about creating value for other people, not just accumulating wealth for yourself. I pulled my business card from my purse, simple white design with elegant lettering, and placed it on Dad's outdoor bar. This has my office number. My real office in the Morrison building downtown. If any of you want to learn about sustainable community development, or if you'd like to invest in projects that generate both profits and positive social impact, I'd be happy to discuss it. Robert Harrison immediately picked up the card. Amanda, I'd very much like to schedule a meeting. Harrison Development is always looking for partners who understand responsible growth. Several other guests began expressing interest in learning more about Parker Holdings and our community development model. But I was watching Dad, who was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Amanda, he said softly, would you like to stay for the rest of the party? I'd like to hear about what you've built. All of it. I looked around at the 60 faces now showing genuine interest and respect instead of polite dismissal. I'd like that, Dad. As the party resumed with a completely different energy, guests asking thoughtful questions about sustainable development and community-focused investing, I realized something important had changed. For the first time in my adult life, my family and their friends were seeing me for who I really was instead of who they thought I should be. And Dad was introducing me to people as my daughter Amanda, who's revolutionizing how real estate development can support communities instead of displacing them. It was the first time he'd ever introduced me as someone successful. The Hillcrest neighborhood stretched out around us, 47 properties that would soon become a model for sustainable community development. But tonight, the most important transformation was happening right here on Dad's patio, where a family was finally learning to measure success by impact instead of image. And that was worth more than any property acquisition.